Hi everyone! So this month's 7-day challenge is to do 4 quick 10-minute landscape sketches a day. I'm using an A5 sketchbook, dividing each spread into 4 sections. The plan is to spend 5 minutes on each sketch just painting in the base with gouache, and then come back around and spend another 5 minutes on each one adding details with colored pencils. I first saw this idea from another illustrator and thought it looked like such a good exercise for loosening up, getting out of that perfectionist mindset. When you're working with such short time limits, you kind of have no choice but to focus on what really matters in the sketch. You can't obsess over tiny details, you're just capturing the essence of the scene. At least that's the goal. We'll see how it actually goes. To help with that, I'm using a big round brush for the gouache part, something that forces me to keep things loose and bold. But honestly, my brain still wanted to cling to all the tiny photo detail. I had this urge to zoom in and get everything just right, which kinda defeated the point. And I'm not gonna lie, the first 5 minutes was stressful. I spent all of them just spiraling into that familiar anxiety loop. It's weird, right? Painting is supposed to be relaxing and fun, but for me, it often starts with this wave of doubt and pressure, like, you're never going to be good at this, or why are you even trying, that kind of stuff. I'm sure I'm not the only one who gets those thoughts, and I think it's especially strong when you're doing something you haven't practiced much before, or when you're stepping outside your comfort zone. Actually, would you believe that I bought all my paints back in 2021 and then didn't really start using them until 3 years later? I'd swatch them now and then, rearrange them, but I just couldn't bring myself to actually paint. It wasn't until December 2023 that I made myself do a 30-day gouache challenge, and that's what finally helped me break through the fear. And even then, it's not like everything changed overnight. I still procrastinated a lot. The fear and self-doubt were definitely still there. But something shifted. I realized that if I just keep showing up, even if the sketches are messy or awkward or not what I imagined, eventually I'll get to the good ones. But I have to be willing to get through a whole lot of weird and ugly ones first. That's one of the reasons I started doing these 7-day challenges back in August. They're short enough not to feel overwhelming, but long enough to get me past that initial resistance. These challenges won't magically make you a better artist in a week, but they do help you build confidence. They remind your brain that it's safe to try something new, that it's okay not to know exactly what you're doing, and once you get over that mental hurdle, you start to actually enjoy the process, which is the whole point. Because when you enjoy doing something, you're way more likely to stick with it. You're not forcing yourself, you're just doing it because it's fun and interesting and rewarding. And that's where real growth comes from. Not from pushing yourself to be perfect, but from showing up consistently and giving yourself permission to figure it out as you go. So here we are, almost done with day 1 of the challenge, and honestly, my spirits were kind of low at this point. What you are seeing now looks a lot like the kind of sketches I used to do a few years ago, back when I was just starting my art journey. It's like, have I even made any progress since then? It really threw me off for a moment. But thankfully, I've seen myself do better. I know I can. So instead of spiraling into that whole, I'm terrible at this mindset, I tried to shift gears and just analyze what was going on. Like, why instead of loose, confident brush strokes did I fall back into these anxious little pencil marks? The answer for me is anxiety. Sometimes having a time limit can help loosen you up, and sometimes it just totally freezes your creative brain. That pressure makes it so hard to actually play with materials. My brain goes straight into this already looks bad, what if I make it even worse? And I know how silly that might sound. I mean, I'm 37, why am I still afraid of something little kids do with zero fear? I'm talking about drawing, painting, just messing around with art supplies. Kids dive right in without second guessing every mark they make. But that fear is real, and I know I'm not the only one who feels it. So, instead of beating myself up and comparing myself to all the artists who seem to handle challenges like this effortlessly, I decided to tweak the rules a bit and make the exercise work better for me. I asked myself, how could I adjust this so it actually feels safe and fun? Here's what I came up with. Starting from day 2, I decided to change the structure. I still stick to the 10-minute limit per sketch, but now I start with a super quick 1-minute pencil sketch just to get the shapes down. Then I do 3 minutes of loose painting with gouache. After that, I give myself another 3 minutes to go over the dried base with a smaller brush to add a few more layers and details. And finally, I spend the last 3 minutes adding colored pencils on top. That's it, still 10 minutes, just broken up a little differently. And honestly, it already feels way better. I actually look forward to the process instead of dreading it. The thing is, we are all different. If something works great for someone else but doesn't feel right for you, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means you might need to customize it a little. Maybe you need more time or less time, maybe fewer materials or more, a smaller sketchbook or a bigger one. There's no one-size-fits-all method. And once you start building your own version of things, it helps you find your own way, and that way will naturally lead you to your own unique creations and style. Looking back, I don't hate my first 4 sketches as much anymore. At the time, I was really down about them. They just didn't feel like me, and I felt like I hadn't made any progress. But now, with a little distance, I can see that they are not actually that bad. I mean, they are not my favorites, and they are definitely not what I wanted them to be. But they are fine. They are part of the process. And honestly, they kind of helped me figure out what wasn't working, which is useful in itself. I definitely like the ones I did after adjusting the rules a lot more. They're still really simple, nothing super polished or detailed, but they feel calmer, less chaotic. I'm not frantically trying to force something in 10 minutes. There is more space to breathe, more control without losing the looseness I was going for. Even just giving myself that 1 minute in the beginning to do a quick pencil sketch made such a difference. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it gave me just enough time to slow down and actually look at what I was about to paint. I could sketch calmly without rushing or panicking and still feel like I had enough time left to do everything else. I don't go into detail in the pencil stage, just some light marks to lay out the composition and shape things up a bit. Then I move on to that first gouache layer, which is all about blocking in the main colors and shapes. No details yet, just getting the basic feel down. After that, I go back in with gouache again, but this time I switch to a smaller brush and add a few more refined strokes. edges, shadows, little accents. And finally I finished things off with colored pencils, which is probably my favorite part. They are great for pulling out a few details and adding texture or little highlights. That three-step rhythm just works so much better for me. It feels more playful, more thoughtful, and a lot less stressful than trying to make everything happen all at once. It's not perfect, but it's fun, and that's really the point. Thanks for sticking around. Hope the rest of the video is fun to watch, and if you feel like giving this challenge a try yourself, definitely let me know. I'd love to hear about it or even see what you come up with.